Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission here is always to take a huge stack of source material. Could be articles, research, or in today's case, a truly profound spiritual text, and really distill the absolute core of its wisdom for you.
And today, we are really jumping into the deep end. We're tackling the Ashtavakra Gita.
Which is known in Vedantic literature as one of the most direct, most, I guess, advanced texts out there.
It's incredibly direct. It sort of bypasses a lot of the preliminary steps and goes straight for the highest truth. It doesn't waste any time.
It really doesn't. So our deep dive today is exploring its central teaching, which is how to discover what our sources call immortality within mortality.
And we should be clear what that means. It's not about the physical body living forever.
Right, this isn't a sci-fi thing.
Not at all. It's about a profound shift in your identity, a cognitive clarity so deep and so stable that it sustains itself no matter what's happening externally, setbacks, challenges, even the aging of your body. None of it touches this core understanding.
It's an internal revolution then.
Exactly. And it's important to understand the context of this wisdom. It's communicated within a sacred lineage, this personal contact between the guru, the teacher, and the shishya, the student. This isn't just reading a book.
It's a living transmission of understanding.
Precisely. And the transmission here is between two incredible figures, the great sage Ashtavakra and King Janaka.
And Ashtavakra himself is such a fascinating character to start with. His name, Ashtavakra, literally means 8 deformities. He was born with a physically twisted body.
He was a true Brahmagyani, someone with the absolute vision of oneness. But this profound wisdom was housed in a form that society would deem, imperfect.
And that contrast is the very first lesson, isn't it, before he even speaks?
It is. The story goes, he walks into King Janaka's court, and all the scholars, the learned men, they take one look at his twisted body, and they burst out laughing.
Which is just an incredible thing to imagine, and his response is immediate and so cutting.
He stops, looks right at them, and basically declares that he thought he'd come to an assembly of wise men, but he sees now it's just an assembly of cobblers.
Cobblers. I mean, what a specific and powerful insult.
Think about it.
Yeah.
A cobbler is only concerned with the external leather, the skin. By judging him on his physical appearance, these so-called scholars were showing their own shallow focus. They were stuck on the surface, on the temporary physical form.
So his wisdom, from the very first moment, stands in complete opposition to their limited view.
It sets the stage for the entire teaching. The real inquiry has to go deeper than the skin, has to go beyond the surface of things.
Perfect. That's the lens we need. Because as you said, the Ashtavakra Gita doesn't mince words. It starts right with the problem we all face, this problem of inherent limitation.
Exactly. When we really look at our existence, we're all born into limitations. We live for a limited time in a limited body with limited capacities. Our sources frame this in terms of creation itself.
The continuous history of Ishwara, the divine principle, which maintains this cycle.
Yes, the cycle of birth, desire, procreation. The source material refers to this as tamasek and rajasic creation.
Right, creation driven by inertia and ignorance or by frantic action and passion.
It's the relentless cycle of doing, always driven by some desire or another. And if we're honest with ourselves, our well-being within that framework is also incredibly limited.
Because it's dependent on things that change.
Absolutely. If your happiness depends on your job or your health or a relationship, well, all of those things are guaranteed to change. So you're subscribing to a limited, fragile reality by default.
So what's the alternative?
The alternative is what the texts call sattvic creation. It's the quiet propagation of this wisdom, which aims to transcend that limitation. It's an effort that our sources say will always continue no matter what, because it's not about changing the world outside, but about discovering the nature of the self, the Atma, inside.
And that brings us perfectly to King Janaka. He was a powerful king, evolved, spiritual, but even he was trapped by this fundamental question of what is real.
And it took a dream to really bring it to a crisis point for him. It's a very relatable story.
It is. He's taking an afternoon nap, a powerful king, and he has this horrifyingly vivid dream.
In the dream, he's lost everything. His kingdom is gone. He's a beggar, destitute, running for his life. Just sheer terror and loss.
And this wasn't just, a bad dream you shake off. He woke up in a cold sweat.
Exactly. And instead of just saying, phew, glad that wasn't real, he paused. And he asked the fundamental spiritual question, which Janaka is the real one?
Is the King Janaka in this palace the reality? Or was the beggar Janaka suffering in the dream the reality?
Because while he was experiencing each one, it felt 100% real. The terror of the beggar was just as real as the comfort of the king.
That's the turning point, isn't it? The moment you realize that the solid ground beneath your feet might not be so solid after all, that your identity could just dissolve.
That's what drove him to seek out Ashtavakra. He needed an answer. And Ashtavakra, drawing from Vedanta, gives him the most elegant tool for inquiry imaginable, a simple definition.
The real is that which is permanent and never changes. The unreal is that which constantly undergoes change.
That's it. It's a beautifully simple metric. It doesn't require faith, just honest observation.
Okay, so let's apply that definition. Let's run our own experience through that filter. If the real is what's permanent, what do we normally identify with that immediately fails the test?
Well, pretty much everything. Let's start from the outside and work our way in. The world, as we perceive it through our five senses, is it permanent?
Not a chance. Seasons change, buildings rise and fall, mountains erode. It's in constant flux.
So, by definition, the external world is mithya. It's a temporary changing reality, not the ultimate real. Okay, so let's come closer. What about the tools we use to perceive that world, our senses?
Also changing. My eyesight isn't what it was 10 years ago. Hearing fades.
Our sensory power diminishes dramatically with age. The source material gives that very human example of older people getting grumpy about food.
Right. It's not always a comment on the cooking.
Often, it's just that the sense of taste, the power of the tongue, has literally weakened. The joy they used to get from it just isn't there in the same way. The senses are fundamentally unreliable, changing narrators.
Okay, so the world is changing, our senses are changing. What about the physical body itself? This is a big one. We're so identified with it.
It's probably the biggest identification. But we have to see the body not as a static thing, but as a continuous process. Vedanta calls it the annamaya kosha, the food sheath. It's literally a heap of food that's constantly regenerating and decaying.
The cells I have today are not the cells I had 7 years ago.
Not at all. From a baby to a toddler to a teenager to an adult to an old person. It's just one continuous phase shift. Even the energy that animates it, the pranas.
The pranamaya kosha.
Yes. Our vitality, our strength. It peaks at a certain age and then begins to decline. It's all in a state of flux. So the body fails the permanence test spectacularly.
But then we get to the really subtle part. The mind and the intellect, our thoughts, our personality. Surely I am my thoughts. That must be constant.
Is it, though? The mind, the manomaya kosha, is the very definition of instability. Shankaracharya pointed this out beautifully. In childhood, your mind is obsessed with play.
Then as a teenager, it's all about romantic interests.
And in later life, so often it gets consumed by chinta, by worry. The entire content of the mind changes based on your age, your health, even the time of day. Your intellect's ability to focus, the vijnanamaya kosha, also changes.
So the world is changing. The senses are changing. The body is changing. The mind and intellect are constantly changing. If we disqualify all of that, what's left? Is there anything permanent at all?
There's one thing, and this is the great revelation. The constant element is the sense of I, the pure consciousness, the Atma, that remains the silent, unaffected witness to all this change.
The witness, the sakshi.
Yes. Your body ages, your thoughts come and go, your feelings fluctuate wildly, but the fundamental awareness that I am has never changed since you were a child. It has never gone anywhere. It is the screen upon which the movie of your life is playing.
We get so caught up in the movie that we forget we are the screen.
That's the perfect analogy. We are so busy cataloging the furniture in the room, the thoughts, the feelings, the sensations, that we forget to notice the space in which all the furniture exists. The space is the consciousness.
So the goal becomes crystal clear. It's not about becoming something new or achieving some special state.
Not at all. The whole effort is to simply stop the false identification. To systematically give up identifying with the limited, changing body-mind complex, and to learn to abide in your true nature.
Which is described as Brahma or Satchidananda Atma.
Existence, consciousness, bliss, or simply completeness. You are already that. The journey is just about removing the ignorance that makes you think you're something small and limited.
Okay, so we know the goal is this abidance in the self, recognizing this inherent completeness. But here's the question that always comes up. If we're already that, if it's our true nature, why do we need a method? Why do we need these traditional practices, the mukhya sadhanas?
That's the critical question. And the answer is, because the habit of ignorance, what Vedanta calls ajnana, is so incredibly powerful, the momentum of a lifetime of wrong identification doesn't just evaporate because you have one intellectual insight.
The old programming is still running in the background.
It's running on autopilot. That's why we need these three primary practices. to systematically deprogram and reorient ourselves to the truth.
And the first one is Shravana.
Shravana is listening. It's hearing the words of the teacher, absorbing the scriptures. In a way, what anyone listening to this is doing right now is a form of Shravana. It's taking in the knowledge.
But just hearing it isn't enough. That leads to the second step, Manana.
Yes, manana is deep reflection. It's not enough to just hear it and nod along. You have to chew on it. The source material uses that wonderful analogy of a cow chewing its cud.
Right. The cow eats the grass quickly, but then later it sits quietly and brings the cud back up to chew it again and again to extract every last bit of juice from it.
That is manana. You take the teaching, I am the unchanging witness, and you bring it up in your mind over and over. You test it against your own doubts, your own experiences, your own logic, until there are absolutely zero intellectual questions left. You have to own the knowledge.
And once the intellectual conviction is there, we get to the final and most crucial step, which is really Janaka's focus here, nididhyasana.
Nididhyasana. It's often translated as meditation, but the more accurate way to think of it is active abidance in that knowledge. It's living the truth, not just thinking about it.
So why is this so necessary? If I'm convinced intellectually, why isn't that the end of it?
Because, as we said, intellectual knowledge alone can't overwrite decades of deep mechanical conditioning. The mind's habit is to look for happiness outside, to identify with the body, to react from a place of limitation.
This is where that analogy from the source material about driving a car is so helpful.
The left-hand versus right-hand drive analogy, that's perfect. Imagine you've spent your entire life driving in the UK, where the driver's seat is on the right, and you drive on the left side of the road.
It's completely automatic. You don't even think about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, you fly to the United States. Intellectually, you know the rule has changed. You know you're supposed to sit on the left and drive on the right. The knowledge is there.
But what's the first thing you do when you walk up to your rental car?
You instinctively walk to the right-hand side door to get in. Or, when you pull out of the parking lot, your mechanical habit might pull you into the wrong lane for a terrifying second.
The knowledge is present, but the body's deep programming, its habit energy, is still in charge.
Precisely. Nididhyasana is the conscious practice of the new way. It's deliberately, consciously choosing to abide in the new orientation. I am the witness, not the doer. Until that becomes the new automatic second nature response. You practice it until you no longer have to think about which side of the car to get into.
Without that conscious practice, you end up a spiritual schizophrenic. You know the truth intellectually, but you react to life's stresses as if you're still this small, vulnerable, limited person.
And that gets to the very core of what we're trying to cure here. Vedanta calls it the disease of samsara.
And the disease isn't an external problem like poverty or bad luck?
No, the disease is internal. It's the constant, nagging, pervasive feeling of inadequacy, smallness, and limitation.
A feeling that drives so much of modern life. The endless chase for more money, more validation, more experiences.
It's the direct result of identifying with a body and mind that are, by their very nature, limited and imperfect. If you think you are your body, then of course you'll feel inadequate when it gets sick or old. The only cure is the realization of purna, or completeness. And Jaka's blueprint shows us exactly how he put this into practice to cure himself.
Okay, let's get into that blueprint. These are Janaka's personal verses, his testimony of how he achieved this state of abidance. He says he did it by cultivating indifference asaha towards 3 specific areas of his life. The first one is indifference to physical actions, kaya kriti.
This is such a subtle but critical point. It's so easy to misunderstand this as becoming passive or lazy.
Right, don't do anything.
But that's not it at all. Life is action. The body has to act. The key is to drop the identification as the doer, the sense of, I am doing this. He realizes that action happens spontaneously. Your heart beats without your effort. Breathing just happens. In the same way, the actions required for life can simply unfold through the body-mind mechanism without the ego claiming ownership.
So why is that claim, I did this, so problematic? Why is the ego of doership such a folly?
Because doership directly creates expectation. And expectation is the mother of all disappointment. If I claim credit for a success, then I am psychologically obligated to take the blame for a failure. My peace of mind becomes entirely dependent on the outcome of my actions.
And on getting validation for them.
And that is the most insidious trap. The need for acknowledgement. The source shared that wonderful, almost comical real-life story of the man and the ceiling fans. It illustrates the silliness of doership perfectly.
Yes, let's tell that one. So there was a man who had donated several large ceiling fans to a community hall.
A very generous act. And, as was the custom, his name was painted on the blades of each fan.
So every year, there's a big annual function in this hall. It's crowded, it's hot. And what does this man do?
In the middle of the function, he walks over to the main switchboard and very deliberately turns all the fans off. The room gets stuffy, people start fanning themselves. Then after a minute, he turns them all back on with a flourish.
And why?
Because in that moment of annoyance and then relief, everyone would look up at the fans. And in looking up, they would see his name and be reminded of his grand donation. He had to engineer a situation just to get that little hit of validation.
That is exhausting. To live your life needing to constantly manipulate your environment just so people will recognize your contributions.
And that's the trap of what we might call hustle culture today. Your value is defined by your output, by what you do. Janaka is saying, let the doing happen. But you, the real self, are not the agent. You are the witness. When you drop that agency, the need for validation vanishes. The disappointment vanishes.
This also applies to spiritual actions, he says. He could let go of even his secondary practices, his satanas.
Because those practices are medicine. They are for chitta shuddhi, for purifying the mind. But once the disease of inadequacy is cured by knowledge, you have to stop taking the medicine. Continuing to perform rituals just to prove to yourself or others that you're spiritual is just another form of doership. He had outgrown the need for the effort itself.
Okay. The second area of indifference he points to is vok, or excessive speech. This isn't just about talking too much, is it?
No, it's much broader. It includes pointless arguments, debates, gossip, but also, and this is so relevant for us today, the endless consumption of words.
The information overload.
Absolutely. The source material points out that the average person with a smartphone today has more raw information pushed at them every morning than the entire intelligence briefing for a U.S. president had just a few decades ago.
That's a staggering thought. We're literally drowning in data, opinions, news, lectures.
And what's the result? Does all this consumption lead to deep understanding? No. It leads to a scattering of our focus. Your mental energy is constantly being pulled outwards. Every article you read, every video you watch, every debate you get into online, it's a drain on your finite focus.
And the whole goal of nididhyasana is to conserve that focus and turn it inward.
Precisely. Janaka realized that even endless philosophical discussion can become a sophisticated distraction. You need quiet. You need an indifference to the constant urge to speak, to consume, to have an opinion, so you can gather that focus energy and use it for stabilization in the self.
Which leads to the third area of indifference, and this is maybe the most universal one, chinta, or mechanical thinking. The endless churn of the mind.
This is the mind's default state, isn't it? It's like a Pandora's box. If you just leave it to its own devices, it'll either dredge up some bitter memory from 33 years ago or spin out a detailed anxiety about something that might happen in 33 days.
It's always swinging between the past and the future, regret and anxiety.
It's a machine that needs something to chew on. And if you don't give it something constructive, it will chew on you. It will chew on old grievances and future fears.
So what's Janaka's solution? How do you quiet that machine?
The solution is stunningly simple. The ability to be completely, consciously present in this moment. When you withdraw your focus from the mind's cyclic, mechanical narratives, all that energy that was being wasted is now available for internalization.
So it's not about fighting the thoughts. It's about withdrawing the energy you're feeding them.
Exactly. And this withdrawal allows for a monumental shift in orientation. A shift from a life of constant doing the next task, thinking the next thought, solving the next problem, to a state of simple, unadorned being.
We are called human beings, but our whole society values us for being human doings.
100%. The source offered that wonderful story about the monk and his rice allowance that just perfectly illustrates how difficult it is for us to simply be.
Let's share that one. So in an old temple managed by the government, a new officer comes in to review the accounts.
And he sees on the payroll that one particular swami, or monk, is allotted 2 full bags of rice per month, which is a huge amount. He asks, what work does this swami do? And the answer he gets is, he just is. He just stays.
And the officer, being a practical man of action, says this is a complete waste of resources and cancels the allowance.
So Swami challenges him. He says, fine, you can cancel my allowance, but only if you can do my job for 1 day. Your job description is simple. Come in the morning, sit here on this platform until the evening, and just be.
The officer thinks this is the easiest job in the world. He sits down, determined.
After 5 minutes, he's shifting uncomfortably. After 10, he's asking for a glass of water. After 15, he needs some tea. After 20 minutes, he jumps up, completely agitated, and says, I can't do it.
He can't just be.
He can't. He restores the Swami's allowance and admits that just staying put, just being, was the hardest thing he'd ever been asked to do, because his entire being was conditioned for constant motion, for doing.
We are so out of touch with that quiet core of our being.
And that's Janaka's whole point. By cultivating this indifference to the compulsion to do, to speak, and to think mechanically, your focus naturally comes to rest in the selves. The frantic, outward-facing orientation corrects itself.
So once that orientation starts to correct, Janaka moves to the next layer, which is the burden of personality itself. He talks about shedding identities.
Yes, this is a huge step. He
Mm.
recognizes that we aren't born with a personality. We're born as pure being. And then society, our parents, our education, they start pasting labels on us.
Your name, your nationality, your religion, your profession, your political party, your list of likes and dislikes.
All of these layers build up into what we think of as me, a rigid, crystallized personality structure.
Yeah.
And the core insight here is that the stronger your identification with a limited personality is, the stronger your background feeling of limitation and inadequacy will be.
Because any label, by definition, is finite. If I say I am an American, I am also implicitly saying I am not the rest of the world. I've drawn a boundary.
You've drawn a boundary. And we actually crave these boundaries. The source used a great sociological example from the U.S. to show this.
The conference story?
Yes. A group of organizers wanted to put on a big cultural event. They advertised it broadly as an all-India conference, trying to be inclusive. They expected thousands of people, but only about 500 showed up.
They were mystified.
So they tried a different approach. A few months later, they organized another event, but this time they advertised it as the All Gujarati Conference, a much more specific regional identity.
And 5,000 people showed up.
Immediately. Why? Because people feel more comfortable, more seen, inside a smaller, more defined box. We gravitate toward these limited identities, even though they're the very source of our feeling of smallness.
So the path of Vedanta is the opposite. It's the path of neti-neti, not this, not this. It's about peeling those labels off.
You have to see that these identities have utility value, for sure. You need a name to get a passport. But psychologically, they are a huge burden. When you're carrying the weight of being a successful person or a spiritual person or a good parent, you're living inside a cage of your own making. Janaka realized that shedding these notions brings an incredible lightness and freedom.
And we all get glimpses of this freedom, don't we? Moments where the personality just dissolves for a second.
Absolutely. Those universal moments of awe. You're standing on a mountaintop looking at a vast vista or staring at the ocean at sunset. For that moment, your mind goes quiet. You're not thinking about your job title or your bank account. The personality is gone. And what's left?
Peace, joy.
Spontaneously, without
Yeah.
any effort. And the other place we see this every single day is in deep, dreamless sleep.
Deep sleep is the ultimate proof, isn't it?
It's a universal, nightly demonstration of dependency-free happiness. To go into deep sleep, you have to surrender every single identity. You are not rich or poor, man or woman, healthy or sick. You're just being. And when you wake up, what's the universal report? I slept so well. I feel so peaceful.
You were happy without needing anything. No person, no object, no experience.
It completely contradicts the world's message, which is that happiness comes from getting something, from acquiring or consuming. Deep sleep proves that joy is our default state when the burden of personality is set aside.
This means that our whole approach to seeking the self has to be different from any other worldly pursuit. The usual methods just won't work.
They can't work. Any worldly effort falls into one of 4 categories, and our source material is very clear that none of them apply to realizing the Atma.
Okay, what are those 4 categories of effort?
First is propya, gaining something that is external to you, something you have to travel to or acquire, like buying a new phone. Second is vikar, changing or modifying something, like turning milk into yogurt.
Third is samskaram.
Right, purifying something, like refining raw ore to get pure gold. And fourth is utpadya, manufacturing, or creating something new, like building a car.
But the self, the Atma, is not a product of any of these 4 actions.
It can't be. It's not propya because it's not somewhere else. It's not external. You can't go on a pilgrimage to find it. The master in our sources use that funny analogy of the donkey on pilgrimage.
Right. If a donkey carries a saint or holy relics on a long pilgrimage to a sacred site.
The donkey doesn't come back enlightened. The donkey is still a donkey. It might have gained some good karma, some punyam, by being in a holy environment, but its fundamental nature hasn't changed.
So going to a place doesn't give you the self. And it's not something to be purified either.
It can't be, because the Atma is defined as Nitya Shuddha, eternally pure. Consciousness itself has no impurities. The mind might have impurities. The thoughts and habits and spiritual practices can help with that purification, that samskaram. But they're cleaning the mirror, not the face being reflected.
And it's not something to be created or manufactured.
It's not utpadya because it already exists. It is the eternal subject. So if you can't gain it, change it, purify it, or create it, what is left?
Recognition.
Only recognition. The entire role of the teacher in the scriptures is not to give you something new, but to help you remove the ignorance, the ajnana, that is preventing you from recognizing the self that you already always are.
It's a journey of discovery, not of accomplishment.
And that's exactly what Janaka realized. This moves him into the final stage of his understanding, where he starts outgrowing even the most advanced spiritual distractions.
He says that because he has no more superimpositions, no more adhyasa or false ideas projected onto the self, he doesn't even need to put effort into focusing his mind, like enforced samadhi.
This is a very advanced point, and it can be confusing. We're often taught that if the mind is distracted, you need more discipline, more effort to force it to concentrate.
But Janaka is saying the opposite.
He's saying that if your mind is still distracted by the world, it's because you still see value in the world. The mind naturally flows toward what it values. Forcing it to be still is just suppression.
And suppression is not the same as freedom.
Not even close. Suppression will always fail eventually. True dispassion, or vairagya, isn't about suppressing your desires. It's about outgrowing them. Think about a toy you loved as a 5-year-old.
A tricycle or something.
Right. Do you now have to use willpower to suppress your desire to ride a tricycle?
Of course not. It just has no value for me anymore. I've outgrown it.
If you've outgrown it, it's lost its charm. That is true vairagya. It's not a struggle. It's a natural dropping away of things that no longer hold value for you. The source material used that classic story of the yogi and his coffee to show how suppression fails.
Oh, this is a great one. So there's a yogi practicing very intense meditation, trying to force his mind onto the absolute.
And just before he goes into his deep trance, his last lingering thought is, I'd love a cup of coffee. He pushes the thought away and goes into a profound state of samadhi for a very long time.
But when he finally emerges from that state,
The very first thought that pops into his mind is, I need a cup of coffee. The desire wasn't resolved. It was just put on hold. It was suppressed. Janaka has dissolved the desires by understanding the valuelessness of their objects.
he understands the principle of mithya, that the world is a passing show.
And when you deeply understand that, it loses its power to grip you. It's like knowing the plot of a movie. You can watch it, appreciate it, but it doesn't have the same emotional hold over you.
The movie screen analogy is perfect for this.
The screen is permanent, white, untouched. You can project any movie onto it. A violent war film, a passionate romance, a heartbreaking tragedy. The viewer might cry or cheer.
The false image on the screen creates a real emotional reaction in the real viewer.
But the screen itself is completely unaffected. The bullets don't tear it, the kisses don't stain it. When Janaka realizes that the self is the screen and the world is just the movie, he knows that the false cannot touch the real. The drama loses its power.
And this understanding allows him to shed his emotional investments, his strong likes and dislikes. He reaches a state of neutrality.
Because strong preferences are a constant source of suffering. You're trying to force a chaotic, unpredictable world to conform to your very narrow script of how things should be.
You're in a constant battle with reality.
You are. The source shared a funny personal story about this, about the simple act of accepting all vegetarian food.
Tell me.
The speaker decided, as a practice, to drop all preferences. He would eat whatever vegetarian food was offered without comment or complaint. This simple act of acceptance created a kind of flow. People noticed this easygoing nature. And because it was known, he had a mild preference for dark chocolate.
He ended up with an overabundance of dark chocolate.
He was inundated with gifts of dark chocolate. It's a lighthearted example, but it shows how when you stop resisting, life can sometimes flow in surprising ways. The real goal, though, is that neutrality, the presence or absence of dark chocolate, of success, of praise. It simply doesn't disturb your inner peace.
This mastery is achieved by withdrawing your emotional investment.
Even from difficult people or toxic situations. You can be present, you can do what needs to be done, but you are not participating in the emotional drama. You are the witness, the sakshi.
And this shedding of identity goes all the way. Janaka says he even outgrew the identity of being in a particular stage of life, an ashrama.
Yes, being a householder or a renunciate, a grahasta or a sannyasi is still a role. It's still a box. These roles and their prescribed disciplines are like the metal cage you put around a young sapling.
The cage is essential at first. It protects the young tree from being eaten or damaged.
It's absolutely necessary for its initial growth. But what happens if you never remove the cage? As the tree grows, the cage that once protected it now starts to constrict it. It stunts its growth and can eventually kill it.
So spiritual rules and identities are the cage. They're useful for a time, but you have to have the wisdom to outgrow them.
You must. And when Janaka sheds this final cage of roles, how does he live? This leads to the ultimate state, spontaneous living.
He says that both doing things with a sense of doership and actively abstaining from doing things are both forms of ignorance.
Because both require effort and an I, who is either doing or not doing. The wise person transcends both. Their life becomes spontaneous, like the journey of a dry leaf.
The dry leaf has separated from the tree of samsara, the tree of suffering.
It's free. It has no agenda, no destination, no effort. It just moves with the wind of life, the flow of prabdhatma. What needs to happen happens through it, but there's no personal investment.
This all points to the most profound insight of all, that the self, the atma, is a kintium. It's not an object of thought.
You cannot grasp it with the intellect. You can't capture it in memory. We try so hard to make consciousness into another piece of knowledge we can file away, but it's not. Consciousness is the very light by which you know memory, but it's not dependent on memory.
A person with severe memory loss still knows that they exist.
They still have that fundamental sense of I am, even if all the stories about who I am are gone. You don't need a means of knowledge like your eyes or your mind to know that you exist. You just are.
So the role of the guru is just to remove the dust from the mirror.
The teacher doesn't give you a new face. He just cleans the mirror of the mind so you can finally see the face that was there all along. That's Janaka's final realization. The person who gains this clarity has fulfilled the very purpose of being born a human. They become a blessing to themselves and to the whole world just by being.
That is moksha, freedom, recognized here and now. What a journey. I mean, from that simple, powerful definition of reality as the permanent, unchanging witness, all the way through the practical steps of nididhyasana to correct our unconscious habits, and ending in this state of spontaneous freedom that comes from dissolving all the false identities.
The whole path that Janaka describes is one of gaining total cognitive clarity.
Oh.
The clarity that the self is the sakshi, the unaffected witness to this entire passing show. And it's important for you listening to understand that this clarity doesn't always come like a sudden lightning bolt.
Right. The source material uses that great visual of the Polaroid picture.
It's a perfect metaphor for the process. You take the picture and you pull it out of the camera, and at first the surface is just a blank gray square. There's nothing there.
And if you're impatient, you might think it's broken. You might try to force it, shake it too hard.
But you have to trust the process. You just hold it gently and wait. And then slowly, a few dots appear. A faint pattern emerges. And over time, the full, rich, undeniable picture develops and becomes clear.
That time has to be given patiently without this pressure of, am I enlightened yet?
Exactly. The truth itself is simple and direct, but letting go of a lifetime of ingrained habits of self-ignorance, that takes a bit of time and persistence.
But there is a really critical point of friction here that came up in our sources, a very honest reflection from one seeker. They said that as they achieved this state of detachment and calmness, they suddenly felt stuck in a vacuum.
Yes, describing it as an awkward state where I don't belong anywhere.
That sounds terrifying, actually.
It can be.
Yeah.
And it's a very real and important stage to talk about. It's what happens when you have successfully detached from the lower world, the world of your old identities, your dramas, your external goals, but you haven't yet fully and stably anchored yourself in the higher reality of the self.
You've left home, but you haven't arrived at your destination yet. You're in a no man's land.
You've burned the bridges to your old life, which is a necessary step, but you're not yet standing firmly on the other shore. And that space, that void, can feel very disorienting because the old life, for all its pain, was at least familiar. This new freedom is unknown territory.
So what does one do in that state?
If you find yourself in that gap, you have to draw upon an immense and unwavering courage. The courage to just stay put, to resist the powerful temptation to run back to the familiar, or to frantically build a new, more spiritual identity to fill the void. That stillness in the void is the final crucible where the anchoring takes place.
So we'll leave you with a final thought to reflect on, something to guide you through that potential transition. If you were on this path, detaching from the comfort and the construction of your old, limited self and moving towards this clarity, there will likely be that gap, that void where nothing feels solid beneath your feet.
What courage will you draw upon to navigate the void between shedding your old identities and fully recognizing the limitless self that you already are?
Think on that and give yourself the quiet space needed for that picture to develop. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the profound wisdom of the Ashtavakra Gita.
Mm.
Until next time.